Ginger Ninja 1776. Ginger Ninja is the member of the supporter from our locals community, member of our locals community, made the most absolutely beautiful, stunningly one-of-a-kind, magnificent chessboard, and then made a video about how he did it. He says, Mark 8:36 to 37, Jesus speaking, "For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul? For what can a man give in return for his soul?" I'm not a religious person, but I can appreciate damn good lessons of life when I hear them. And now, speaking of which, what are all the riches of this world worth for he who has forsaken his soul? There's a flip side, analogous understanding to that, interpretation of that, or just, lesson to that. Bearing false witness to oneself. We're going to get into Jenna Ellis now. I do my absolute best to be as empathetic as humanly possible, and I don't think I have a choice, because I know as a matter of fact that it's an affliction. I'm saying I suffer from something called hot empathy, which is I will feel other people's pain even if they don't feel pain for themselves. And I'm not saying this to say that I'm all virtuous and whatever. I look at Justin Trudeau, and every now and again with him, I'm past that point. I look at his eyes and I just feel deeply sorry for the human being. I just feel sorrow for what an awful, repulsive creature he has allowed himself to become. Even if he does not hate himself, even if he doesn't feel that himself. When I look at people who are doing terrible things, and I say, I can empathize with the circumstances of life, with, the genetic, biochemical deficiencies or whatever that contribute to people doing terrible things. It's one of my problems that I had when practicing law. I would destroy, eviscerate, break into tears a witness while cross-examining them. My client would be happy, and I would go home that night feeling terrible, even if it was deserved. I'm thinking of Jenna Ellis right now. Jenna Ellis, she's been on the channel a couple times. I had her on to talk about the Georgia indictment. And I don't know what I would do if I were in the position of Jenna Ellis, Sidney Powell, Cheesebro, who's the latest one who pleaded? I forget his name. I don't know what I would do in their circumstances. They have the full brunt of a highly weaponized prosecutorial, judicial system, media enterprise coming down on them, bearing the brunt down on them in real time. I don't know what I would do. But when you know that you are not a criminal, when you know that you haven't lied, when you know that you haven't done anything wrong, and they compel you, they coerce you into condemning yourself, I can understand why people do it, and then I can have a great bit of resentment for why they've done it. In certain circumstances more than others. Sidney Powell, at the time of the election, came out with the Kraken theory. She has the Kraken. It's coming, incontrovertible evidence of the ghost of Hugo Chavez, servers being, raided, flipped votes, etc., etc. She was convinced about it. She said she was convinced about it. She led hundreds of thousands of people. Is it down a primrose path? She misled hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, that caused them to be discredited. The theory that she put forward, other than jeopardizing herself, which we said at the time, jeopardized the legitimate, baseful, not baseless, but the legitimate election contest. It undermined everything. It was the red herring that the media needed to undermine and ignore the actual election fortification as described in the Time magazine article. But she believed it. She was a true believer who, come time for her to defend her true beliefs, cops the sweetest deal of the ascending dominoes of plea deals that we're seeing right now. That's a betrayal, not just to herself, but to others as well. But it's a betrayal to herself. Then you got Cheesebro, who also pleaded. He didn't get quite as good of a deal as Sidney Powell. And this morning, maybe it happened yesterday, I discovered it this morning. It was this morning. Jenna Ellis pleads. And I listened to the entire 23-minute hearing, and I just cut what I think is the most important part of it. Jenna addressing the court, and if anybody hasn't read 1984, now is the time. Like 1984 is my Bible of sorts, because it's got all the lessons that everybody needs to understand in terms of politics. It's a political Bible. Although I think the original Bible is probably also the political Bible as well. This is the abridged quotation. It was Winston from 1984 looking up at the big poster of Big Brother, and he says, "Oh, what was hidden behind that mustache? It was a misunderstanding. Why all of this strife? All of this suffering for a mere misunderstanding?" Quote, "Two gin-scented tears trickled down the sides of his nose, but it was all right. Everything was all right. The struggle was finished. He had won the victory over himself. He loved Big Brother." That's the end of the book. This is Jenna Ellis bearing false witness to herself a second time. And we had the discussion as to what was learnt the first time when she bore false witness to herself for the ethics complaint. I think it was in Colorado. And we had learnt this lesson from James O'Keefe, who said never again would he bear false witness against himself. It was the biggest mistake he ever made in his life. Here she is bearing false witness against herself and betraying herself, among others.
Thank you, Your Honor, for the opportunity to address the court.
I'm telling you this, I genuinely feel bad for her. I genuinely feel bad for her, and these are the tears, in my view, not the same tears as Winston at the end of 1984. She is not truly believing what she's saying, I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm giving her too much of the benefit of the doubt. This is a coerced settlement because her life was set up to be ruined, one way or the other. If she goes to court, goes to trial, and goes to jail, that's going to put a stick in the spokes of her life. If she does what she's doing now, that's going to put the sticks in the spokes of her life as well. And she is now being forced to betray herself, and I think that's what the tears are. I don't think these are true Winston tears of, I now genuinely love Big Brother. I've convinced myself that 2 + 2 is 5. I think this is, I'm crying because I'm betraying myself and everyone else out there who supported me in my stated fight for the truth. And we'll get to that.
As an attorney who is also a Christian, I take my responsibilities as a lawyer very seriously, and I endeavor to be a person of sound moral and ethical character in all of my dealings. In the wake of the 2020 presidential election, I believed that challenging the results on behalf of President Trump should be pursued in a just and legal way. I endeavored to represent my client to the best of my ability. I relied on others, including lawyers with many more years of experience than I, to provide me with true and reliable information, especially since my role involved speaking to the media and to legislators in various states. What I did not do, but should have done, Your Honor, was to make sure that the facts the other lawyers alleged to be true were in fact true. In the frenetic pace of attempting to raise challenges to the election in several states, including Georgia, I failed to do my due diligence. I believe in and I value election integrity. If I knew then what I know now, I would have declined to represent Donald Trump in these post-election challenges.
I'll actually break this down afterwards. I'll just let it play out.
I look back on this whole experience with deep remorse. For those failures of mine, Your Honor, I have taken responsibility already before the Colorado bar who censured me, and I now take responsibility before this court and apologize to the people of Georgia. Thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Ellis, for sharing that. All too often, I don't get to hear the perspective of the accused in these cases, and so that's appreciated.
That's appreciated. Thank you for groveling for the mercy of the court and bearing false witness against yourself and discrediting yourself to everyone who had supported you in this endeavor. And I'm not saying that judgmentally. I'm saying that as a matter of fact, because this is duress, and anybody who says otherwise is deluding themselves. But I want to break it down from the beginning because it's also an interesting. Jenna will be able to convince herself that she admitted no wrongdoing here. She relied on the warranties and representations of more experienced lawyers. I'm thinking Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani. She was merely the spokesperson. We don't need to play it again. She was merely the spokesperson for the Trump campaign. She wasn't doing the due diligence. She was repeating what she was told. In the actual full 23-minute hearing, they go through 5 or 6 statements, which they are now saying were demonstrably, incontrovertibly false. But she's saying, I relied on people with more experience. I should have done my own due diligence. And had I known then what I know now, I would have declined to represent Trump. That's a different statement than saying, had I known then what I know now, I would have made different public statements. Because at the end of the day, you're damn right she believed what she was doing at the time. And you're damn right she believes it now. But what she is facing now is simply too much for her to face. Actual jail time of a system that is totally flipping corrupt. And so now she's got to say, not that I would have said anything differently, but I would have, if I'd known then what I knew now, that they were actually going to come after lawyers and criminalize the practice of law, criminalize the representation of a client, hell yeah, I would have said no. Some people are saying, this is why I think there might be some fault here for not coming out and defending those who defended him vocally. I'm not sure what he can say that wouldn't be considered further RICO interference with the co-defendants. But my goodness, yeah, sure. I would have declined to represent him because I didn't know that they were going to come after lawyers and criminalize the practice of law. I would have just found another profession. The problem, however, and it's a big one, the betrayal to herself is one thing. The betrayal to everyone else who came out and said, we want to help you in this pursuit. We know that this is an injustice. We know that you are receiving the short end of this political prosecution stick. And she brought up a give, send, go, to which a lot of people donated. And I'm not suggesting that this was all a ploy from the very beginning to get a $200,000. I mean, that's a lot of money. It's not life-changing money, and it sure as hell is not money that you can use for the rest of your life. But it was the statements in the give, send, go, the give, send, go that was set up for her by her attorney. This is the official crowdfunding support page for Jenna Ellis, created by her legal team. Jenna Ellis, a former senior legal advisor and personal counsel to President Trump, is being targeted, and the government is trying to criminalize the practice of law. Help us fight back and stand for the truth. I donated to this. Even though at the time I donated to it, I was taking a lot of flack from people who had already said Jenna was throwing Trump under the bus. She was a turncoat. She jumped on the DeSantis camp and started pooping all over Trump supporters. I was like, even if you believe that, this is bullshit. Even if you believe that, if you believe that, all the more reason to show not just good faith, but principled support. I will support the people who I don't even align myself with ideologically at this point. And I'm trying to withhold judgment because I don't know what I would do in that circumstances, but help her fight back and stand for the truth. And, you raised $216,000 for the defense to stand for the truth. Some people say that was never going to be enough. Others are saying, it was a grift. That's not enough money for the rest of your life to have burnt the bridges that Jenna has burnt by bearing false witness to herself. So even in all of that, I still feel bad for her because that's not even the riches of this earth. To sell your soul, that might be enough to get through a few years of life. Where it will really be problematic is if in 2 to 3 to 5 years, you see some of these people on CNN, MSNBC raking in those big checks. That will be the ultimate betrayal. But $216,000, some people are going to see that as a grift. That's not enough money in the world to burn the bridges that Jenna has just burnt, and I'm sure it pains her to do it. Now, Robert Gouveia, a man who I deeply respect, has a different perspective on these plea deals. I think it's a little bit more rosy and optimistic. I appreciate that he's got more experience and knowledge by a long shot than me, but I've heard differing interpretations by legal minds, and I know which ones I found more plausible. But everybody, you go to Robert Gouveia this evening. He does the afternoon recaps, and they're amazing. But I don't chalk this up as a win for the defendants. I don't chalk this up as a W, as an L for Fani Willis. This is a big fat W for Fani Willis. I want to show you the graphic, which I think is absolutely on point, if I dare say so myself. It's a good meme. Everybody should, or a good graphic. Everybody should keep this one in mind here. This was in response to Kyle Becker, to which I'll get his tweet, but I said, this is the cascading up of plea deals here. Let's just pause it. Stop. That little one on the bottom, that's Sidney Powell, you see? And then one after that is Cheesebro. And now we're getting into the bigger planks, because I think getting Jenna Ellis to plea to what she pleaded to, and ostensibly throwing Giuliani under the bus, well, I think I don't know if Giuliani's going to flip. We'll see. But this is what it is, people. One plea deal leading to another plea deal, and they're going for that big plank, Donald Trump. And everybody knows that it's bullshit. Everybody knows the prosecution's bullshit. Does everybody listen to Leonard Cohen? Everybody knows. Anyhow, that's it. So that's the latest. She pleaded, she pays a $5,000 restitution. She's got 5 years of probation. She had to beg the court to let her go back to Florida today because they couldn't get the agreement in. And if they couldn't get the agreement in, then she couldn't leave Georgia because of jurisdiction. Can you believe this? I mean, groveling and begging for mere freedom.